threats, 2 mystics, 4 thoughtcasts, and 3 dispatch.
Right.
So dispatch being the artifact swords to plowshares.
In terms of his acceleration or quasi-acceleration, we have 4 Mox Opal and 4 Springleaf Drum.
Yeah.
And
so here we go. Caleb started with a Misty Rainforest, and Steven starts with a Vault Scourge off an Inkmoth.
I think he accidentally brought his standard deck.
Tempered Steel? Oh, nope. Memnite?
Still standard.
Yeah, all of these cards are standard legal. I'm looking, and like, this deck's basically modern legal almost, except for the artifact lands.
Still standard legal. So remember, folks, if you are not sure about how to be able to cheaply play competitive Legacy,
Yeah.
Robots is a path. There aren't actually very many expensive robots in this here deck. What do we got for expensive cards in here? 2 Tezzeret might be the actual most expensive. Mox Opal. There we go. 4 Mox Opal.
Tezzerets have sort of fallen out of the favor. You know, they're pretty easy, to find around. No one's really playing Tezzeret these days, except for this deck. I mean, it's not even played in Modern because the Modern Affinity decks don't have the artifact lands. So there's a Dismember in response to the Mox Opal, probably killing this Vault Scourge. Caleb going down to 15 to do so.
He has a single Dismember in his deck, right there, doing the work to kill a essentially what is a quasi-mana for Steven LaCoste, because if Steven doesn't get some artifacts going, that Mox Opal does nothing.
Right. He can animate the Nexus, but that costs him a mana. If he needs to get colored mana for, say, a Thoughtcast, but he's still even 1 short for that, so...
Brainstorm from Caleb.
Looks like he's gonna ship... Does it look like a Spell Snare in there? Which is reasonable against the Affinity decks.
Oh, Brainstorm into no land.
The old Drawing Dead. That's one of the problems with Brainstorm when you can't shuffle. If you have to put bricks back, kind of dead. Ancient Den for Steven.
And immediately back up to 3 artifacts.
Yeah. Animating Inkmoth Nexus. Attacking for a poison and a damage.
1 poison on there.
It looks like Caleb's lack of action here may not be the end of him. Steven's not really doing that much here.
Froggy.
And
it's going to go.
Caleb passes with Spell Snare up. Looks like Caleb's hand is a little... We got a back to basics, maybe a Jace, but, not too much interaction. Caleb probably is going to go down to 12 and 2 poison here.
2 poison now.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, this is a kind of uncharacteristically
repeal.
Repealing the Memnite. Gain a life, draw a card. Almost a Reviving Doze.
I would have felt okay with maining that on the previous turn.
Possibly.
I mean, if he gets... he knows the land isn't there yet. No, he didn't know that.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Memnite and Ancient Den down. Caleb finds his 2nd island, so we might start seeing some actual spells cast.
After he passes the turn.
Yeah. So Caleb at 2 poison and 12 life. Steven at 18 from the Vault Scourge. 2 islands facing down Frogmite, Memnite, Inkmoth, 2 Ancient Dens, and a Mox Opal. Not Tezzeret mana. That's very important here. Look at
Stoneforge Mystic.
Ooh,
are we going to see a Spell Snare?
Definitely.
Boom, there it is.
You have to counter that, because otherwise, Crane Plating is just going to come down, uncounterable, and just... figuring out how he's tapping his
You got to tap it.
I mean, the obvious way, but,
Activates Inky. Sure. We're going to see 3 poison.
3 poison, 9 life. Caleb's deck, he doesn't have a lot of removal. He just has the Dismember. He has to get some kind of board presence down here to get going.
A back to basics would be pretty exciting right now.
It would. That would lock down the Inkmoth.
Oh,
another land miss for Caleb.
How many cards does Caleb have? Looks pretty. Looks like 8 almost. Is that 7?
Yes, that is 7.
Oh, it is 7. Okay. Just wanted to make sure we had the correct things going on there. A 4th poison, 3 more damage, down to 6.
Yep, Steven plays a Seed of the Sign-Up, but does not show that he has a Tezzeret in hand because despite having the mana now, he cannot cast it. Looks like I saw a 2nd Mox Opal in his hand earlier. The legendary aspect of that artifact...
Oh, just in time to have another counterspell.
Not what Caleb wanted to see here. Gonna have to discard.
Scoop.
He can still get out of this, but he's gonna have to discard. I can't tell if one of his cards is a Vanillion Click, because that would be what he'd need here, or Snapcaster Mage.
Goodbye, Spell Snare.
Caleb at 4 poison, 6 damage.
There's not much life left.
Steven LaCoste draws another Memnite, which will actually be bringing the good beats right here.
Here's an Inky.
Inkmoth levels up into a creature. 3 life and 5 poison. Don't think this poison is going to be so relevant this game.
It's close. It's close. If anything, that yeah.
Is that that's a proxied on Memnite. It says Verdant Catacombs.
Nice. Counter spell.
Yep. Counter spell takes out this 0 mana 1/1. Negative tempo play, but still what you need to do nonetheless.
A City of Traitors Solemn Simulacrum will keep him alive, and then a Tezzeret will kill him.
Oh. Caleb packs it in. Unable to find an answer for mediocre beats. Short on lands there, but...
So, quick question for you. I'm looking at Stephen LaCoste's deck, and I see a deck, and this is, Affinity. I see a deck that I think is competitive in this Legacy metagame, and I don't think this is the only deck version. The Tezzeret version, I don't think is the only version you need to play. But people have asked me, what can I build in Legacy that's cheap? Is this competitive enough to bring to the table?
I think that deck's awesome. Sure, you are going to lose to someone who decides that they want to show up and put an Emrakul into play. A lot of decks are going to do that. But, we've seen a lot of success of Burn lately, and Affinity's a lot along the same lines where, hey, I'm going to show up and do something that's not quite super degenerate, but this really odd, unfair axis that a lot of these Force Will decks just aren't prepared to handle. So I think Affinity is a perfectly reasonable choice. I actually remember playing against it in GP Providence last year, and I'm playing Dark Ritual, so obviously not a matchup. Playing for top 16 the last round, I look over and he's right next to me. He's like, yeah, I just played against a mental misstep decks, and they all died to cranial plating.
Yep.
So I can see the same thing happening here. Spell Snare, cranial plating is not the best matchup, but you can just drop a plating on one very easily with this deck. It's uncommon in Modern, but with all of the artifact lands, it gets a lot easier. One thing to talk about is maybe porting from the Modern list this sort of Galvanic Blast, Burn backup land.
You go Galvanic Shrapnel, for example?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know if the mana gets good enough that you want to lean on Tezzeret, but this deck looks very, very similar to the Modern list, and there's probably a lot of things you can sort of learn and port over. Stoneforge Mystic isn't that much different from Steel Shaper's Gift. It might actually... if you don't have a Batter Skull in your deck, it might actually be better to just play Steel Shaper's Gift.
I actually saw that out there. I saw a player out there with literally that. They were running the
in
Gift.
Legacy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're doing, because it was the second round, and they were in the middle of the field. And in the middle of the field, you don't know if you're looking at winners or losses. So
yeah. No, being cheaper actually might be extremely relevant, and I can definitely see that being... worth considering the pseudo downgrade, because I guess you have a 1/2 body that can carry a plating that might be good, but the mana could be very relevant as well.
I mean, really, what is... I think you're right that Mox Opal is the most expensive card for this kind of build. Other builds of this deck, I don't think any build of this has any particularly expensive card besides Mox Opal.
I think I've seen Ancient Tombs in some of the lists.
And Ancient Tombs isn't particularly expensive.
There's no Force Wills or Tarmogoyfs or random cards from Legends.
Or even I imagine you actually... I'm not saying that Wasteland belongs in Affinity. I imagine you could put Wasteland in Affinity, maybe. But, let's pretend you did that. That would be the most expensive card you'd probably be investing in the deck.
Probably. I've seen Force Will builds, but I think that's shifted away recently. They involved, Force of Will and Master of Ethereum to pitch, and Tezzeret. And Thoughtcast as your spells. But you're probably a little short. So looking at sideboards here, what's Steven bringing in? He has a... Thoughtseize, Spell Pierce might be good. He might port out... I don't actually know if he knows what Caleb's on is the thing.
Yeah. I know Caleb is likely to bring in 2 Tabernacles of the Pendrell Veil. Tabernacle, I believe, is a $180 or $200 card.
Yeah, something absurd.
Yeah,
some insanely hard to find card.
Yeah, I've played Tabernacle a few times, actually, for Grand Prix Columbus. What one was that? That was Steve Sadin Grand Prix Columbus. I played Tabernacle in my deck.
You played it at the Flash Grand Prix?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I borrow that from Sam Black, and then at some point I'm doing a trade with someone, and someone steals my Tabernacle.
Ooh.
I didn't notice. They took some of my stuff, stole my Tabernacle, and then about 9 months later, I end up getting a Tabernacle from somebody that was just some guy.
Yeah.
Bought it from him for cheap because it was mushed. Like there was a little nick on it. Give it to Sam. I'm like, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, no, this is my Tabernacle. Like, he recognized the mark on it, and I just went the circle of life. It went out into the world and came back to me.
You know, they always say before the event, we'd hate for you to have to buy your cards again off eBay. Sometimes you're actually, be careful with your stuff. It could actually happen that you are buying your own cards off of someone.
Island versus Mox Opal, Ornithopter.
Steven's thinking.
Inky.
Next.
Taps Inky for 1. I think we're going to see a Signal Pest.
Yep. Looks like he was baiting the counterspell on one of the Ornithopters.
And maybe tap Mox for a Thoughtcast?
That would be a pretty explosive start.
Pretty amazing turn. For Pro Tour, Kobe, a friend of mine lent me her black border Ornithopters.
Ooh.
That she hadn't played Magic for years, but she was like, "Oh, you're going to play an Ornithopter deck? Here, have these."
Is this an end of turn repeal here?
Repeal on
Ornithopter, probably.
Yeah,
I don't think you're
Ornithopter.
The Mox on the way back down.
I like the Ornithopter.
Ornithopter saves the damage, but if Caleb wants to counter the Mox and attack Steven's mana, that might be what he's trying to do. I like the snazzy white border. It's kind of.
If you actually watch Caleb play a little bit longer, I think he literally grabbed a random stack of islands and sleeved them because there's infinite arts in there.
I like that. Seed of the Sign-On for Steven. Mox Opal. Caleb's probably going to let this resolve now that...
there's a seat?
Yeah, now that Steven has mana. The only thing you can cut him off is Stoneforge Mystic, but he doesn't actually know Steven has Mystic or Tezzeret or any of these cards because there's so many options. He can probably assume Tezzeret at this point, but... So Steven's going to get in for 2 damage, 2 poison. Caleb could have another repeal, could have another dismember, but other than that, nothing in his 75 that instantly interacts. He could Snapcaster, but none of these guys can be blocked by Groundmen, so let's see. Yeah, Caleb may have... He doesn't really have anything else in his sideboard for this matchup.
Scalding Tarn. Literally, Tabernacle is the only card I see that does anything.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it actually would be effective here to blunt Steven's mana, but...
Yeah, it would maybe more than blunt. It would kill a couple guys, start locking down his mana. I think the Tabernacle back to basics combo is one of the reasons Caleb played this deck. It's just very, very good against these Maverick decks that just fetch Savannahs and you just punish them.
Yeah, Vendilion Click, if Caleb has it, would eat the Signal Pest.
Yeah, Steven might be considering this at this point and maybe not want to run the Pest in there, but I think you just have to...
I think you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Boom. And Caleb just takes
2 poison, 16. This might be a poison kill here.
It's up to 4 poison, I believe. Yeah, 4 poison.
Yep, 4 poison, 2 and 2, and another Nexus. Caleb is on a 2-turn clock to these lands.
Back to basics. Shackles, ooh.
So the interesting thing to note is that even if Caleb at beginning of combat takes one of the Inkmoth Nexuses with... That's a Spell Pierce for that Shackles.
Oh.
But even if he had beginning of combat taken a Nexus, it could just be tapped for mana in response, so it could not block the other. So Caleb down to 1 mana untapped, facing down 4 poison potentially, putting him to 8 poison here. This is getting a little bit tight for him.
I think he's in real terrible trouble.
Oh. Vault of Whispers.
8 poison?
Yeah, 8 poison, 14 life for Caleb. This is just the usual beatdown. None of the important cards, just no platings, nothing big, just Signal Pest and some lands.
Amusingly, if Caleb can put a back to basics down, he's actually back in this game.
Back to basics, lock down your creatures.
Lock down the poisony.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a main phase Brainstorm, followed by a Crack with the fetch land.
Yeah.
Looking for back to basics. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, if Steven had tapped his Mox Opal, ooh.
I
think Caleb's just dead to poison here.
Oh, yeah.
And Steven quickly dispatches Caleb. 2-0. Poisoned out by Affinity. Yeah, as I was saying before, this Affinity deck is brutal against these blue decks if they just don't show up prepared. Energy Flux, is a card, but do you really have energy flux in your sideboard at this point? Are you that scared of Affinity?
Right.